YouTube, this is Oasis Rising, and today we're going to be painting up the face on this little guy. I've got one here that did up already, so you can see kind of what he's going to look like. There we go. So we're even going to do his eyes, both hands, and his little ears. There isn't too much skin tone on this figure, which is nice. So these are the colors or this is the guy we're going to be painting up. These are the colors we're going to be using in kind of the order we're going to be using them in. The base is going to be rat skin flesh, then we're going to do the eyes with black and white, and then we're going to do highlighting with bronze flesh and elf flesh. These are some old colors. The bronzed flesh is kind of an orangey flesh tone, and the elf flesh is more bright. And then we have the organ flesh wash, which is pretty nice. So let's get started. Okay, so first we're going to start with that rat skin flesh tone, just to kind of base coat everything. There's still kind of a leftover base coat from when I first did these models, but it's kind of been roughed up a little bit just from doing everything else. And I think back here is a little bit of his neck, so I'm going to try to hit that. Probably going to get it everywhere, but that's okay because we'll be getting all these other bits later. The only bits I want to be careful about are the silvers, which we just did. Okay, then there's his ear, which is teeny tiny. That looks good. Here we go, to be very careful about not hitting that chest plate. And then this side is tricky because his hand is in the way. I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear my radiators whistling in the background. If you do, I'm really sorry, they're kind of obnoxious. But if I block the vents that cause the whistle, then they don't work properly and it gets very cold in here. If you can, sneak in there behind the horse's head and get the palms. It's easier said than done without getting anything on the mane. Alright, I think he is all base coated. There's something odd going on here. I think this will end up being blue in the end, so I won't worry too much about that, but there's a little bit missing there. There. Oh, missed his nose. Okay. Anywhere else? I think that looks good. Alright, so next we'll move on to doing the eyeballs. We're going to do this before we do any of the other highlighting, because if we mess up, we can just go back with the rat skin flesh tone and clean it up and not have to worry about having to clean up our highlights and all that stuff. So, but once we get the eyeballs in, we'll just have to be careful not to mess those up with the rest of the highlighting. So for the eyeballs, oops, missed a bit. For the eyeballs, we'll mix up a little bit of black and white with our elf flesh, and that will kind of give us a nice off-white and a nice kind of gray. We don't need much of each of these. And of course my elf flesh is really disgusting. It's super goopy. It's a very old paint. I think it's one of the first ones I ever got back in the day. Over 10 years ago. Okay, so I'll show you what I'm doing here. There's our black and our white and all my cat hair on my white palette. So we'll start with the white. Just get a nice creamy off-white. I'm going to try to do it with this brush, but I'm not sure how successful that will be. So one trick to getting kind of in fine areas with these bigger brushes is to flatten it out. Oops. So you have kind of a broad side and a flat side. So we're going to go in with that flat edge and try to hit the eyeballs. Okay, and that's okay if it's not quite perfect and in the lines. And that one turned out kind of messy. Again, that's okay. A little messy because I can't really see what I'm doing. Can't hold the model as close as to my face as I would normally when I'm painting. but that's okay. So we have to wait for this to dry, and while we're waiting, we can mix up our black. So for our black, it's going to mix a little bit of the flesh tone in there to make a nice gray. Okay, so for this we really don't want very much paint. We just want a really, really sharp point. And he is looking, he wants to be looking down his arrow, so we want his eyes to be kind of looking straight this way. So to do that, we're going to make this eye, kind of pupil, close to and touching his nose, or the inside. So there's not going to be any white on that side. Okay, here we go. Oh, that's not quite right. I think the paint dried a little bit on my brush. He looks very surprised now and goofy. Okay, so that's not good. We want to do it a little better. So for the pupils, I kind of go at the model perpendicular to what we did before, which means that kind of a right angle too. Okay. Now he looks a little weird right now because I kind of went outside the lines a little bit. But trust me, it's going to turn out. Okay, so for this eye, we don't want to make it as close to the middle like we did with that one, because then he'll look cross-eyed. So we want to leave a little bit of that white, if it got in there, close to his nose, and make this one more kind of in the middle. So, see, I can't get my brush in there quite as well as I did with the other one, so we'll just be very careful. There, I think that'll do. Again, he looks a little weird because it's all outside the lines, but don't worry. So next we'll go back with the rat skin flesh with our brush kind of flattened like we did before with the white, and we'll clean up the top and bottom. It might take a coat or two. And if your paint is quite thin, you can try dabbing. And what that will do is when you lift up, that will kind of deposit more paint than if you stroke, if that makes sense. Okay, and then the top of the eye. Oops, I got a little bit too much in the eye. Shoot. So now he looks like a frog. I'll have to go back and fix that. And on this side, There. So now all we have to do is clean up those black parts, which I got a little bit on the other side too. So for that, I think I'm gonna switch to a tinier brush because this one seems to be giving me problems. And that was a Raphael size 0 that I've been using, and I'm gonna swap to a Series 700, not the miniature. This is the regular one. All right, so we're going back in with the black. And kind of the reason why, I mean, the size 0 can get in and make really fine lines, but it's really hard to, because it's got such a big, what is it? It sometimes puts down more paint than I'd like. Alright, how's that? You can see it better than I can. Not quite. There, I think that's better. Now for the other side. There we go. Now when we do our wash, it's gonna kind of line the eyes, so we don't have to worry about making that darker to stand out, because that'll be taken care of for us. I'm just gonna add a little bit more flesh tone under this side, because some of that black is showing through. There. So now he's looking down the arrow. He doesn't look cross-eyed. Too bad anyway. Just a little bit of his eye kind of leaking out on this side. There, I think that's better. Cool. So next step is going to be highlighting. So, oh, there's a bit of something there. I'll scrape that off. All right. Okay, so our next color is this bronzed flesh. This is the bronzed flesh color. So you can see kind of our three flesh tone colors. The rat skin flesh is a bit more reddish, or reddy, or at least it's showing up that way on the film. The bronzed flesh is more orangey, and the elf flesh is a lot more lighter. It's a lot more desaturated, which means it has like white added to it to make it less vibrant. So, a little bit of color theory for you. Alright, so we're just gonna hit up basically the places that are not kind of in shadow with this stuff and not in the creases. So I'm still using that 00 brush just because there's lots of fine details and small spaces I need to fit into. So we'll start with the hand here. There. And I'm just gonna hit up. Let's see. And because this is a dude, we can kind of get away with more sharp for harsh transitions. If this were a lady, you might have to give a few more steps in between, kind of mix the rat skin flesh with bronzed flesh, because you don't want a lady's skin to feel so angular. And this ends up looking a little weird with just these two layers. And don't worry too much about that, because there's such a difference in the color. When we add our wash, that's going to kind of tie everything together. But what we're really looking here to do is to kind of pick out the shapes so they stand out a little bit and it doesn't just look flat. Oh crap, I got some on his eyeball. I was just gonna say, here's where you need to be careful about the eyes, so I'm gonna try to fix that a little bit by fortunately, it's not too noticeable. It's not too noticeable in human perspective. It's pretty noticeable on the camera, but oops. We'll just kind of wait for that to dry and have to go back and fix it later. So if we try to fix it now after we just got it all wet, it's gonna bleed everywhere. And that would make everything much worse. Make his eyelids nice and bright. His cheekbones. Let's see. The elves have very shallow cheekbones. I'm gonna get the bottom of his jaw. We don't really need to get the bottom of his lip too much because that'll kind of look odd. Because lips are generally darker than the rest. I think I'm going to leave that as it is. And the wash will kind of take care of differentiating it from the rest of the mouth area. So this is why we do the eyes first before we go on to highlighting the rest of the skin. Because to fix all this would be a pain in the butt. So I got a little too much in the crease around the mouth, so I'm gonna just go back in with the rat skin flesh and clean that up a little bit. Okay, I think I already got the ear, so move on to the hands. So with hands and things, we not only want to get the stuff that's like in the light, but we also want to highlight the areas that are stretched, like the knuckles. So as we go down, these areas are not so much in the light, but the knuckles are stretched. So we want to make sure or the skin is stretched over the knuckles. So like when you clench your hand. I don't know, it's too small to, my hand's too big to show you, but. Mm-hmm. And then along here where the tendons pull. And then on this side it's kind of tough to see normally, so we're just gonna hit the top of the thumb there. We're not gonna bother with trying to highlight stuff in there because you can't see that anyway. Okay, so that looks pretty good, and we can go back and fix that eyeball. You know, it's really not easy to see that there was a mistake. Without the camera zoomed in. So where was that mistake? Okay. How's that? Is that fixed? I think it's fixed good enough. Okay, so then we want to go on to our elf flesh. This is our latest skin tone. And for this, we're just going to hit the very tip-top spots, the spots that are catching the light and that are stretched the most. So, especially the knuckles. His nose. if you're quick enough, you can just get your brush wet and pull the paint away from those mistakes. But sometimes with this acrylic paint, it's difficult to get in there quick enough. Alright, I think that's good for the face. Like I said, you can see it much better than I can. Okay, I think that's good. So, I mean, our transitions for these highlights are not very smooth, but that's okay. This is meant to be tabletop, or a bit higher tabletop. Not necessarily showcase, but I think a step up from just I'm hoping a step up from just regular tabletop. Alright, so once that's all dry, it shouldn't take too long, we can hit it with our wash. This is the Ogre and Flesh, and this will kind of tie all the different layers together. And kind of create a little bit more shading for us. And I dropped my brush. And again, with this, we just want to be careful about hitting up the silvers. Because that's the stuff we've already done, and we don't want to mess up. Other than that, the silvers and the whites. Other than those, we don't really need to worry about making a mess. Like along gold here, we don't really need to worry about making a mess, or on the little the blue parts here. But along the rim of the helmet, we need to be careful. Okay, let's hit it with a wash, and we are almost done. All right, so this is pretty thick. I'm gonna just thin it down a little bit. It's not so crazy. Guess we'll start with the hand again. The tricky thing with the wash is we don't want it to hang out like where we've done our biggest highlights. We just kind of want to glaze it over those areas. with this wash, we can also get it in the eyes. But again, don't let it sit there. Because you really just want it to line like the eyelids, which it's doing. But we don't want it to cover up the work we did on the eyes. And then, just for completeness sake, try to sneak in and get those areas. Oops, I got some on the mane. I think that's okay. Let's try to wipe it off a little bit. A little extra shading for the mane. That's fine. Okay, so I'll let this dry and show you what it looks like. Alright, so the wash is all dry and you can see the final result. It's pretty dark, so if you prefer a lighter skin tone, you could really push those highlights up, doing more with the bronzed flesh and kind of going where we did with the bronzed flesh with the elf flesh, and then adding a final highlight of like half and half white and elf flesh. Now the eyes got kind of tinted again with that wash, so they're quite so they don't pop out like he's really surprised, and you can kind of see that mistake on film, but on the tabletop you really can't see it unless you like hold it super close to your eyes and look. But for our purposes, I think it will be just fine. So there's our skin tone. I hope you like this little tutorial, and I hope to get the golds out next. That will be kind of looks like this. So this guy has his golds done as well. So there's a little preview for you as to what's coming next. Thanks for watching. Bye.